paper. The next paper is work that Anjali, I, and Devendra and Karan Gulati, who are at NIPFB, have done with the Delhi High Court data on to what extent do courts really matter and court efficiency matters in the case of public procurement contracts. So just give me 2 minutes and I'll put up the show. Is it visible? If somebody could just respond.
Yeah, it's visible.
Perfect, thank you. This paper is on dispute resolution and public contracts, and I'll quickly talk about what really got us to these questions. What are the key questions that we are asking? What is the approach that we've taken to answer these questions? What are our key findings? Now, it is obvious that there are problems in public procurement. We do not know whether these problems are endemic to public procurement or do we see them across all contracts where a large private firm is a party. But what we do know is that if there are indeed problems in public procurement, it looks like dispute resolution is a major factor in how parties really resolve these problems. And the question that we were struggling with is to what extent are different dispute resolution mechanisms being used to resolve these public procurement disputes, or as Dr. Matthew mentioned, not really public procurement disputes, but disputes that arise in the course of contracting and outside of contracting in the process of public procurement. So 4 main modes of dispute resolution come to mind: arbitration and conciliation, which we all know is used extensively in contract dispute resolution. There are constitutional courts that private parties can go to in case of violation of fundamental rights. There are commercial courts that can be used for pursuing claims for damages or specific performance. And then there are more institutionalized platforms which really in a way take cognizance of the problem of public procurement that have been set up by the government. So for example, under the MSME Act, we have the Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council that really is a mode of achieving settlement between small vendors and the government in case of disputes arising between them. And the question before us is how much of the dispute proportion is concentrated across these different mechanisms? Which of these are more effective versus less? And this is an important question, right? Because answers to these questions can probably shed some light on what are the bottlenecks in public procurement, why most of these disputes are arising, and how do we think about them resolving them? And that's the sort of next, a holy grail that everybody wants to reach, which is that, what is the problem and how do we solve it, right? So in this work, we are really focusing on disputes in public procurement that are resolved in commercial courts. Now, what do we already know? Like a lot of other things in public procurement, a lot of conversation and discourse on dispute resolution public procurement is also anecdotal. And this is something that we pulled out from general searches on what do people have to say about dispute resolution in courts and public procurement. The first focus often has been on how the government is a heavy litigator. The government is a counterparty to close to 50% of the pending cases in courts. The pendency ratio of cases to which the government is a party is pretty high as close to 80%. A bulk of these disputes to which the government is a party are pending for between 0 to 6 years. And about 10% of the cases are pending for more than 12 years. And if we look at the departments of the government which are involved in this litigation, we find that bulk of them, the discourse suggests that the bulk of them are relating to the finance ministry, followed by railways, followed by labor and employment. Now, nothing of this tells us how much of these disputes are for things like violation of fundamental rights, or things like tax disputes, or things like land acquisition versus how much of this is really relating to procurement and all the problems that come with it, right? So the questions that we had is, how much of these disputes are public procurement linked? Do we see a pattern in who within the government is litigating? Because when we really talk about public procurement, what we are talking about is procurement by a series of agencies of the government, which may be within the ministry, outside the ministry, they may be statutory authorities, they may be CPSCs, we do not know, right? So who it is within the government who is actually litigating in connection with public procurement contracts? What is the nature of public procurement related litigation, i.e. What are the sort of disputes that are arising? What is the stage of the procurement that these disputes are arising at? How are they decided? And what is the time taken? And what we hope, if we are able to answer these questions with data-backed evidence, the hope is that we will be able to have a much more robust analysis of, number one, what is the problem in public procurement, which stages need to be addressed the most, and number two, what is the overall efficacy of the dispute resolution mechanisms in India for resolving contractual disputes between the government and citizens. So what we do is we conduct a case study of the government to business and business to government litigation in the Delhi High Court. We scrape the High Court website for select case types because we really want to focus only on commercial disputes. So out of the over 90 case types that appear on the Delhi High Court website, we identify arbitrations, civil writ petitions, civil suits, land acquisition appeals, and original miscellaneous petitions, which proxy for commercial disputes. So we don't include cases like bail applications, criminal and testamentary matters, tax matters, to which the government is obviously a party, a lot of bail applications and tax matters especially, but we don't include them here. And once we do this narrowing down, we have about 220,067 cases from 2007 to 2020. And these are really just commercial disputes. We then drill down further to filter out those cases to which the government is either the petitioner or the respondent, right? So how do we identify what is government, right? So we start with the most basic things like state. So we start with constitutional bodies, union and state government, central public sector enterprises, SPSCs, regulators, such as SEBI, IRDAI, etc., railways, and statutory authorities like NHAI, which are the most basic state bodies. We then move on. We also narrow down cases which include public authorities and are quasi-state. So for example, we identify things like AIIMS or airport operators, etc., as quasi-state. And we also identify private, we classify the next category as private because we are interested in understanding what category of private persons are really litigating against the state. All right, so after doing this drilling down, what do we have? Like I mentioned, we have about 220,000 cases, which is the entire sample of commercial disputes. Out of these, about 80% are disposed of, and we have about 20% which are pending. And the bulk of these cases really are writ petitions. Now, for those who are not lawyers, writ petitions are cases that are filed against the state for violation of fundamental rights. We find that even in these commercial disputes, citizens and businesses are actually using writ petitions, which allege violation of fundamental rights before the High Court. We look at civil suits and arbitration cases and land acquisition appeals, as I mentioned, and bulk of these, 220,000 cases really are writ petitions. Out of this, what we find is that about more than 60% of these commercial cases have the government as a counterparty. And actually, a bulk of them are not really initiated by the government. So Ms. Krishnan's intuition that actually we don't know to what extent the government is litigating versus being litigated against, it's spot on, which is that the government is not really litigating a lot. About 8% of these government cases are really initiated by the government. And a much larger proportion, like more close to 90% of the government cases are actually initiated against the government. So key learning, the government is suing much lesser than getting sued. Then we drill down further. We really are interested in public procurement disputes, which means that we are interested in those cases where one of the counterparties is a state and the other counterparty is really a business, which means it can be a company, a partnership firm, most parties other than individuals, because in our understanding, individuals do not really participate in public procurement processes, and therefore we drill down to those cases where the business is suing the government or is being sued by the government. And we find that about 60% of the cases are filed by businesses against the union government and CPSEs. Now, this may be a function of the Delhi High Court being the subject of the case study, we do not know, but it seems like if we compare it across different government agencies, bulk of these cases are really being pursued by businesses against union government and CPSEs. We also find that since 2015, the number of cases being filed against the government has been increasing. And the first graph really shows that trend. It is really the number, it is a year-on-year change of the number of cases filed, newly filed every year. And we see that while it was pretty low till about 2014, then we see a sharp increase from 2015. And this includes cases which are filed by the government as well as cases which are filed against the government. So you can assume that there has been an uptick in public procurement related litigation in the court since 2015. What is the nature of these cases? And we find that actually, in line with what was true for the overall sample, we find that bulk of these cases are really writ petitions, which is that a business is alleging violation of fundamental rights against the government. So we are really interested in knowing what is the violation of fundamental right that businesses are alleging against the government. And so we drill down to, we take a random sample of about 60 writ petitions to which companies are parties. We find that about 15 of them are really procurement related matters, and about 10 of them are in the tender and award process. And we find that in more than half of these writ petitions, the writ petition is really dismissed. Then we're interested in what is the nature of commercial matters, really, not writ petition, but civil suits and arbitration related matters that are being pursued in court. Here again, it's important to caveat that the arbitration matter comes to court only in the form of really an appeal against the arbitration award. So what we are seeing really are only those arbitration awards which have been appealed against. And we take a random sample of 51 arbitration matters and civil matters. OMPs are original miscellaneous petitions as civil matters. And we take about 34 of these are, ones that are initiated by businesses against the government. And we find that governments really win about 1/4 of the matters. On case disposal rates, our findings are that until about 2015, there was a consistent ratio of institution to disposal of commercial cases involving the government. However, the gap started widening after 2015, and that is in line with intuition, right? We saw an uptake in government procurement related disputes from 2015. It is possible that the increasing load couldn't be coped up with, and therefore maybe it could be a possible reason for the widening of gap between the number of cases filed versus number of cases disposed of post 2015. And in terms of duration, what we find is that where a business pursues a writ petition, a litigation against the government through a writ petition, the time to disposal on an average is less than 1 year. But where the government really pursues litigation against the business, this is not mostly through writ petitions, it is through civil suits, etc. Then the time to disposal on an average is more than 2 years. We are also able to identify the average duration across case types. So if you see an arbitration appeal, which is the third row in the table, you will find that actually the average time to disposal is less than a year. And we then attempt to do a sector-wise breakup of this litigation. And we find that about 30% of the cases are against banks and financial institutions and insurance. So your LIC, GIC, CPSCs are likely to be the parties to most of these cases, followed by railways. And then we have oil and gas. And that again seems to be in line with procurement values, which is that we find that the procurement values of petroleum and natural gas sectors is, relatively speaking, has been high consistently since 2015. And but the puzzle is that why are CPSCs being sued so much, given that their procurement values are not so high? So what are our key takeaways? The key takeaways are that while the state is party to more than half the commercial litigation at Delhi High Court, not much of it is really linked to procurement. Bulk of this commercial litigation is initiated against the state. Procurement disputes, like we saw, where businesses are suing or being sued by the government, are a relatively small proportion of the commercial litigation in the Delhi High Court. The government has a relatively low success ratio. I mentioned 25% in the procurement-related litigation in the court. And if you do a sector level litigation analysis, it's really largely fragmented beyond the oil and natural gas sector. So we have to be able to marry the procurement values across these sectors with the litigation to see whether more procurement values actually lead to more litigation or vice versa. And these are the initial findings. Of course, a lot of this is maybe a function of the Delhi High Court itself. But some other work that we now plan to do is to be able to do a similar quantitative analysis of the other dispute resolution mechanisms that are being used for resolving government procurement disputes. So like I mentioned, there is the MSEFC, the dispute resolution portal set up for micro and small and medium enterprises, which we are planning to work on to understand, to be able to get a comparative analysis. Arbitration disputes are harder to understand because most of the data on arbitration disputes is really confidential. And what we get from courts and from public domain is really a proxy, because they are really cases where the arbitration award has been appealed or challenged. And the hope is that once we are able to do a comparative analysis of the different dispute resolution mechanisms, it will give us more insights into, number one, what are the real problems in public procurement? Do we see a consistent pattern in disputes? And number two, which dispute resolution mechanism seems to be more efficacious versus not? Thank you. So I'm exactly on time, and to avoid any conflict of interest, I had a stopwatch sitting right here so I don't lose track. And so now may I request Surya to take over and give his inputs on the paper. Again, as many of you all may know, Surya is the program director at Daksh, which is one of the first institutions in India that worked quantitatively with court data, right from collating court data systematically to doing research and analysis with court data. So we're really looking forward to Surya's comments on this. Thanks, Surya.
Thanks, Bhargavi. I think this is a seminal paper and fantastic work. An area which everybody's talked about. Everybody says 60%, 70% of courts are government litigation, but again, you have gone ahead and kind of quantified it. So I would like to respond to this more as a government litigation paper, because whether it is procurement or related or not is, I thought, not coming out very clearly, at least in the presentation. Maybe in the paper you have more details about it. But whether it is procurement related or not is, I think, not clear, and therefore, but there is still value in this government litigation analysis, which is not touched upon at all by any of the researchers. I'm going to pick up 2 points from my previous speakers, Ms. Sudha Krishnan and Mr. Santosh Mathew. Is the fact that you said that there is a lesser suing by the government should be linked to the power imbalance right? If the government is doing what it can do, then really there's no need for them to sue. So that is something that we should be mindful of. But also the number that you called out, 18% or so, right? If I'm not wrong, is not to be seen as a percentage of overall cases. It should be seen only as a percentage of non-writ petition cases, because the state is only sued against in writ petition. When it is trying to pursue, it will be the percentage of non-writ petition cases. So as a percentage of non-writ petition cases, I think it is going to more than double, I think. The next point is about the procurement process, and when, as and when this methodology of identifying which of these cases are really procurement related, when we get to that point, it will be nice to see from the point of what Mr. Santosh Mathew made as to which part of this life cycle are these disputes relating to. A large portion of the writ petitions, it could be appointments, it could be anything else, to the extent that they are procurement related, could well be the tender related, because that's when the process of natural justice, not being heard, not being given an opportunity, all of those will come in. But once it goes beyond that, if they can see in which part of this life cycle these disputes are originating from, are they a payment related dispute? Is it a quality related dispute? That could give us a lot of insights as to which part of the procurement life cycle needs to strengthen. Because while we are saying that the it's a methodological and a huge task, but from a completeness of the paper and the work going ahead, if we are saying that the public procurement process needs to be improved, then we should be empowering the government also to sue for failure for meeting standards of quality or timeliness. So we should look at it as empowering the government also to sue, if you are to look at it as a contract enforcement thing. I would say that choosing another high court to compare with would be hugely beneficial for your work, because Delhi is unique, we all know that. So maybe Bombay or anything else may throw out more natural cases, because a lot of these union government institutions are there, and you may see a lot of consolidation or concentration of disputes relating to the union government in Delhi, which may be skewing a bit. So one other high court could give a different view, maybe Bombay because it's a commercial capital, I don't know. From a comparison perspective, I think your paper will also do well to have comparison of statistics of other case types and other parties. While you're saying that it is less than a year, or you're saying 20% of the disputes are more than 12 years old, is that the case for all cases in Delhi High Court? Then really there is nothing much to different, right? So that statistical comparison may lead to larger litigation management insights, not really procurement related insights. But if we are trying to rely on this to make the larger point, then I think it's worth nuancing it. You have also said that this is for the period 2010 to 2017, right? Or it's cases filed after 2010 onwards.
It's 2009 to 2020.
20, right? So these are cases filed. Now, if cases are anyway taking more than 5 years normally, I'm just wondering, while for the duration of the cases, it may be useful to see only cases filed after, while you're looking at success ratios, right? Because it is also, giving you a sense of how the government is managing its litigation, how much it is pursuing it, how good a case it has. For that matrix alone, whether it is worth taking even disposals during that period, even though they have not been filed during the period. Right? While for your other metrics, only the filed during makes sense. For your disposal, and other related metrics, it may be worthwhile taking cases that have been even disposed during that period, even though they may have originated before your period. And related to that success ratio is the fact that you say that it is a low success ratio. I think there are some, the annual economic survey that we help Mr. Arun Subramaniam with has some success ratios for the tax departments. So when I compare it with that, it doesn't look very low. So maybe the success, what is low is also a good area. If you can throw up the department-wise success ratios, it is it's a good starting point. And my last point here would be that, maybe the last one, but one is, can we compare this with, or can we say this needs to contribute to government litigation disclosures of the institutions, of the companies? How does that compare? Is government disclosing all its litigation? Are institutions really completely transparent about disputes that they're facing? I think that may be a good comparison to make. And this is really the last point. I think it would be a stronger conclusion and maybe saying what is it that this analysis is adding to the public procurement policy problem discourse would be a good extension to make of this paper. And I'm done with my points. And I thank you so much. It's a fantastic paper. First time somebody has done like this, and happy to help in any other way that is.
Thanks very much, Surya. This is helpful. So just to clarify quickly, right? The numbers that I first presented in the initial slides are anecdotal numbers. I wouldn't really call them anecdotal. They're actually put out by the government on the basis of self-reporting by different ministries and departments. So, the point about cases lasting, bulk of the cases are in the 0 to 6 year pendency period, etc., are all self-reported. What we were interested in is to understand if we actually drill down the court data, and we were specifically interested in commercial disputes, what do we find? And that brings me to your next point, which is that are these really public procurement disputes? And I agree, maybe it didn't come out clearly in the slideshow, but how do you identify whether a dispute with the government is a public procurement dispute? Or is it a violation of fundamental rights dispute? Or is it a license cancellation dispute? Or it is Falana or Dikana? I don't know. So what we thought is that a good proxy for this would be to identify cases in which a business entity is a counterparty, right? And what are the chances? I mean, it's a rough proxy for identifying whether these disputes are public procurement or not. So that's how we've done. Now, unless you get into the orders, it's hard to say whether something is public procurement or not. So we've taken a party type as a proxy for public procurement disputes. I completely agree. Inter-court comparison is key to be able to understand this better. And by itself, maybe it doesn't give us a very good picture. It of course gives us a biased sample because you're looking at Delhi, which number one, it is a court of original jurisdiction. So, suits are being filed over there directly. You don't get low value suits at all. And number two, it's Delhi. So who knows, right? So yes, the idea is to extend it on another court. We'd be very happy to work with Daksh in this area if it is of interest. Also, case success ratio, agreed, don't have a benchmark, need to be able to identify another case type. Tax is a good area. And maybe if we could take the tax disputes in the Delhi High Court, but again, that would be a very small sample of the tax disputes generally, and benchmark it, the success to failure ratio, that would be interesting. And on disclosures, I want to say that maybe we will get some systematic disclosures from listed CPSEs. Yeah. So if the litigation is material, maybe we'll get some ideas. I think we have a couple of lawyers in this audience. Maybe they can tell us if, CPSEs really disclose data, listed CPSE disclosures on litigation are easily extractable or not. But otherwise, all good points. We have to figure out a way to do better textual analysis to understand what about the procurement cycle is being litigated, right? So, agreed. There is one question from the audience, which is, if I can just summarize this question, Okay, is the number of cases coming to court itself is a function of dispute size? If this is true, MSMEs would be at a significant disadvantage. So my reading of this question is that, are we saying that should we read these cases as a proxy for the amount of disputes in the public procurement space? So the problem with working with litigation data is always the following, which is that you're only looking at those cases which came to court. It doesn't mean that more disputes don't exist. It just means that you're looking at parties who had the access, who had the means to be able to come to court and litigate this, who were large enough to really not let it go, and who are large enough to not merely just exclude themselves out of the procurement process, but actually bother litigating, right? So agreed, this is the problem with working with litigation, all litigation data. You're only looking at cases which actually came up. It will be a very rough proxy for the value of disputes that actually exist in the public procurement space.
Yeah.
So that would be
I could just add to that. Writ petition related, there is no monetary petition. There, the original, that would be the difference. So, because most of it is writ petition, you may say it is not. Maybe MSMEs are using that route to get the litigation into the, no?
That's right. And now we do have, since 2015, absolutely, we have better sources of data than just court data, right? So suppose we were to look at the number of cases disposed of, or the number of cases being handled by the MSEFC, which is your micro, small enterprises facilitation council. That data is being collected systematically. Then maybe we'll be able to compare and contrast small disputes and how they're being resolved versus large disputes and how they're being resolved in courts, right? So that's another interesting area of comparison. A lot of work, so already getting intimidated, but let's see how that goes. Okay, so thanks, Surya. Thanks very much for your time. If anybody has questions from the audience, happy to take them on.